It's not a chair, no, or a shoelace. I love baseball, not because I was ever a good player, and not because I ever watch it, though I often will go to the University of Illinois and watch the young baseball players there because they play with such passion. But I love baseball because it's the most democratic of all sports. I mean, think about it. In a basketball game, if you're down by 2 points or 1 point, you give the ball to your star, right? You give it to your Michael Jordan, who wins the game for you. In football, the quarterback throws a Hail Mary pass to this best receiver. It's always the best that saves the game. But in baseball, at the bottom of the ninth, the bases are loaded, there's 2 outs. Your worst hitter is up. There's nothing you can do about it. You just stand there, or, you know, if it's a religious team, they can all get on their knees, but there's not much you can do about it because it's baseball. Baseball is that way. And that guy who has hit 179 all year suddenly can become a hero and win the World Series. But you know, when I was a kid, I loved baseball. I did play it a lot, and I played it with 7 of my friends, and we were all equally bad. Well, it's true. We were just terrible at the sport. We each could do one thing really well, but we couldn't put the whole package together. For example, I could hit the ball, but I couldn't throw the ball. An example of this is when I went to throw someone out at home plate and I hit our third baseman in the head. You don't want to know how that happened, but it happened. Frankie was terrible at everything. Frankie just couldn't play anything. He couldn't catch, couldn't throw, couldn't hit, but he was the heart and soul of our team. Frankie was wonderful. If we ever did anything right, he would jump up and down and says, "That's the way, guys." You know, the score's 59-0, but we got someone on base and he was so happy. He would jump up and down. We loved Frankie. Tony could pitch, but Tony went to the plate and closed his eyes all the time. We were a horrible team. We just were horrible. But one summer, in between 5th and 6th grade, the 8 of us decided to join the Chicago Park District Summer League. This is the minors for the Little League. I take that back. It's the minors for the minors of the Little League. It was so bad our parents didn't come to the games. We didn't even have coaches. The high school girls who ran the clubhouse at this park in the summer ran the whole tournament. So we signed up. Now, for those of you who know baseball, we had a real problem right away. There were 8 of us. You need 9 people to play a baseball game. So what we did was we let Tony go first. Then Tony went to the back of the line and switched T-shirts with Davey and signed up as his own twin, Jimmy. Jimmy wasn't good at anything either. And so we signed up, and we think that they probably knew that we were that same guys, and they just realized how bad we were, and they let us play. There were 5th and 6th graders and 7th and 8th grader teams, and a 3rd and 4th grade team. And we were in the 5th and 6th grade league, even though we were all 5th graders. Our first practice was typically sad, with Tony going up to the plate with his eyes closed. The one good thing about that is Tony got walked a lot because he never jumped out of the way when the ball came at him because he never saw it coming. So he did get on base once in a while. And, you know, good old Frankie dropping pitch after ball after everything that came near him, just dropping it. It was our typical practice, except there was a tall, slender girl watching the whole thing. She had a baseball bat and a worn-out glove. And she's watching us from the worn-out bleachers there. And finally she walks over to third base and she calls out and says, "Hey, can I play?" Well, we were in 5th grade, so we were still too naive to understand that girls can't play baseball. That's what the 7th and 8th grade boys told us, but we didn't understand that. We said, well, we're just 5th grade boys. You want to play with us? Why don't you go play with the 7th and 8th graders? And she said, they won't let me. Tony said, well, you can be on our team, but I got to tell you, we're really bad. And she got this brilliant smile, and she said, that's okay. I'm really good. She dropped her glove, and she walked over to home plate. She dusted off the dirt. She took a stance, tapped the baseball bat, put the bat up to her shoulder, and she looked at Tony with a look that said, you owe me money. I want it now. And Tony just kind of looked at her. He finally threw a perfect pitch, and we stood there like 8 owls as our heads turned around completely, but our bodies kept facing forward as we watched the ball sail over the fence onto Humboldt Avenue. And then Frankie started jumping up and down. Do it again! And she did. 10 pitches, 10 home runs right over the fence. We had a new position for Frankie. We put him out on Humboldt Avenue. He was throwing the balls back over the fence. He finally could do something. And then she went up to pitch, and they said, show him, Dan. You can go up there and you can hit what she throws. So I tapped the plate just like she did. I brought that baseball bat to my shoulder, and I waited, and I waited. And then Billy, our catcher, tapped me on the leg, and he showed me the ball he was holding. I didn't even see it. So we begged her to pitch slower so we could practice. And that's the way practice was. Home runs died in her glove. She was so tall, she'd jump up and take them out of the air. She could throw a man out from deep center field. She was amazing. It was if a goddess from Olympus had come down and said, mortals, I will play with you. And we were so grateful that every day we stood outside her house and we carried her bat and her glove to practice. We didn't have a crush on her. We were in 5th grade. We didn't know what that was. We were just so grateful because we were so bad. And so we practiced, and we practiced all the time. Our original name, the Marauding Vikings Who Terrorize the Innocent. That was our original name. We changed it after a week because no one called us the Marauding Vikings that terrorize the innocent. They all called us Rosie's Boys because that was her name, Rosie. And we didn't care that they changed our name. And the high school girls that ran the summer league, they loved Rosie. And we swept through the other 5th, 6th grade teams like a hot knife through butter. And in 3 weeks, we were undefeated. She raised our level of playing, but she also averaged 3 home runs every game. She set a record in the summer school league that year. At the end of the season, we had an undefeated record, and so did the 7th and 8th graders. So we decided to have a contest between us. We were a little bit scared about this because these guys are big. Some of them were over 5 feet tall. And on the day of the contest, we got there, and we're watching one particular tall, slender 7th grade boy, and he's knocking the balls out of the park just like Rosie does. Frankie, he's standing next to Rosie, and he goes, gee, Rosie, these guys are big. And she goes, that doesn't make any difference. He said, but that guy, he's almost as good as you. And Rosie turns to him and says, that's my twin brother. He's almost as good as me. The game started, and it was a seesaw game. For some unexplainable reason, we played at the highest level we could play. I hit a home run. Tony opened his eyes for the first time and hit 2 doubles. Everyone was playing up to a really high level, except for Frankie. And we used to move Frankie from different positions depending on who was at bat. That's how bad he was. And everybody was doing so well. By the 8th inning, Rosie had hit 3 home runs. Her brother had hit 2. The score was 6-6 at the end of the 8th inning. But then in the top of the 9th, the 7th and 8th grade boys went ahead by 2. Bottom of the 9th, we were up. First guy strikes out, next guy pops out. And then we're up to our last batter, and it's Tony, who has this new revelation of sight. He hits a single. I come up next, I hit another single. Billy the catcher hits a 3rd single. The bases are loaded. It's time for Rosie to walk up to the plate. But she didn't, because she had already come to bat in the 8th inning. Frankie was up. Frankie, who had not had a hit all summer. Frankie, who was trembling. He walked towards home plate as if he was ordered to arrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. He was shaking all over. And he stood there, and you could see the 7th and 8th grade boys smiling. They knew the game was over. He stood there. He missed the first one. He's almost in tears as he misses the second pitch. And finally, Rosie yells, "Timeout!" And Rosie comes out to the plate, calls him over, takes away his bat, and hands him hers. And then she bends down and whispers something in his ear. He nods. He walks back, takes Rosie's bat, and he hits home plate, pulls that bat up, looks up at that pitcher, and he looked at him just the way Rosie did. And that 8th grade boy kind of looked, lowered his arms for just a minute. Then he went into his windup and he threw the pitch. And Frankie swung that bat and he screamed as he hit that ball. It bounced off the fence and all 3 of us scored. And Frankie was standing on second base, jumping up and down like he had just won an Academy Award. He was screaming at the top of his lungs, and we all were screaming. With the next out, the game was over, and we'd won by 1 run. Well, the 7th and 8th grade boys came over, and some of them actually congratulated us. And Rosie's brother came over and gave her a big hug, and they walked home hand in hand. When school started, Rosie didn't ignore us, even though she was an 8th grader now. She always waved, came over to talk to us. But the next summer, she didn't join the summer league either. She'd proven her point. She'd proven that she was the best player in the school, in the whole neighborhood. And we did join the summer school with, again, Tony's brother, Jimmy, who didn't exist. And we didn't win a game that summer. But it didn't make any difference because Rosie had given 8 clumsy, uncoordinated boys who had no confidence in themselves the greatest gift that anyone can receive. She gave us the gift of possibility. And that's the true story of Rosie's boys.